Who has two thumbs and absolutely knew that Pecco Bagnaia was going to crush it in the Japanese Grand Prix? This guy right here. Welcome back to another edition of I Told You So Tuesday, where we put my pre-race predictions under the microscope as it pertains to my MotoGP fantasy team, and we're talking about the Japanese Grand Prix. But before we jump in, if you could please like, follow, share, mash all the buttons, subscribe so that you get all the MotoGP content you could possibly imagine. Well, it was a big weekend in Japan, and most notably, Marc Marquez won the championship. I told you so there. Feather in my cap, saw that one coming. Bet you didn't know. You probably did too. I think everyone on earth knew Marc was going to wrap up the championship with, 5 races left to go this weekend in Japan, and he absolutely did it. He came through. Big congratulations to him. Huge kudos. 9 world titles. What a comeback. You can't really take it away from this guy. It's just... what a performance all season long. And now he says he's going to work on next year. So does that mean he's going to stop trying to win races? I don't think so. That doesn't sound like Marc Marquez. But yet again, I had Marc Marquez as one of my gold riders on my fantasy team. Has a pretty good weekend overall, not just in the championship, also just points-wise, getting on the podium a couple times. Good job to Marc Marquez. I told you so. So elsewhere on my team, a lot was kind of the same. We have Ducati as the constructor. We had VR46 as my team. Now, the VR46 guys didn't go particularly well. I think Fabio Di Giannantonio for sure didn't go particularly well. Frankie Morbidelli kind of flew the flag for them all weekend. So that's like a middling I told you so. Frankie was strong. Digi was meh. But, they scored me a few points over there. As good as I could kind of expect with the budget that I had to work with. And the silver tier riders for me this week kind of stayed the same. I had Pedro Acosta and Marco Bezzecchi, who both kind of had up and down days. On Saturday, it was a disaster for Bezzecchi. I did not tell you so with that. I did not see that coming, that Jorge Martin, his teammate, was going to clean Bezzecchi clean out of the race. And I thought, the way that crash looked, that they were both going to be out and missing some significant time afterwards. Especially Jorge Martin got up holding his collarbone. It looked like an absolute mess, and it was a miracle, I think, that Bez was actually able to race on Sunday and have a pretty stinking good result. Now, the Aprilia is not technically very good historically on tracks with very hard braking, hard stop and go tracks like Japan. It likes the fast and flowy, it likes the Assens, it likes the Silverstones. Not this year. This bike under Bezzecchi seems to go well everywhere. It really does. And I can't believe that I'm saying this season. The Aprilia seems to have turned a corner in a big, big way in performance, especially at these circuits that are so stop and go. Bezzecchi was very, very good yet again on Sunday, once given a chance to run with the guys in the front. Did a really good job. What did he come home in 5th place, 4th place? I think it was a 4th place for him. Pretty stinking good for Marco Bezzecchi. Now, on the other side of my Pedro Acosta, the way he looked on Saturday, I mean, I was ready for the biggest I told you so ever when Sunday rolled around, because Pedro looked hot. He does look like he's overriding that KTM just a bit. He looks like he's on the ragged edge. He can't quite run the pace of the top 2 and sometimes even 3 guys, but he does manage to stick it on a Saturday Saturday sprint podium. I told you so, so I'll take that where I can get it. On Sunday, not so lucky. I mean, he was running fairly good, but in the main race, he just felt like after the first 10 laps, he did nothing but fall back and back and back. And I think that's what made him push so hard that he finally did throw it right in the gravel. And he did a good job of keeping it upright and not slamming into the wall or putting himself face first into that gravel. But results-wise, well, can't really say I told you so for Pedro's Sunday Grand Prix performance. But, that happens when you're overriding a bike so extremely much that you're going to make those mistakes. We've seen it from Fabio Quartararo when he's even, leading Grand Prix or in the front of a Grand Prix or a sprint race of him actually, losing the front, tucking the front. And when you're pushing that hard, you're trying to make every inch of that motorcycle scream in pain and give it everything it has. That was terribly said, but you understand what I'm saying. So I feel a little bad for Pedro that it looked so promising Saturday, and at Sunday at one point, all 4 of my riders were 1, 2, 3, 4. They were all up there riding really well, and in fifth place was Frankie Morbidelli from my team. It looked like I had called the perfect Sunday, but alas, it wasn't to be. Pedro throws it down the road. Now, one thing I did not see coming before I get into my big, massive pre-race prediction of all pre-race predictions, the biggest I told you so I can ever say on this program, I want to give a shout out to Joan Mir on the Honda for putting on the podium on a Sunday Grand Prix. We've seen Marini put this thing on a sprint podium. And I'm not saying sprints are easier, but no, they're kind of easier. It's less laps. It's less chance to make a mistake. You don't have to worry about tire degradation. There's less things that can go wrong in 13 laps. Yes, it's fast. Yes, it's frenetic. But the sprint is kind of the chance for some of these other manufacturers to, get their nose in the fight and not have to last full race distance and worry about things that can go wrong when it comes to, full 45 minutes on the motorcycle. So to see Marini put it on the podium already in the sprint was amazing, and Mir, I think, was looking across the garage going, okay, now it's my turn. He ran extremely strong on Saturday, and an amazing third place podium finish in a Grand Prix podium for Honda in their home race. Huge congrats to him, but I did not see this coming, so I cannot say I told you so. I was thinking maybe top 10 mid-pack when I looked at my 7, 8, and 9. That's where I was putting Mir for the weekend. It was not anywhere near the top 5, 4. Certainly was not on the podium. So congratulations to him for making me look like a big, big dummy. But I make up for it with my pre-race prediction. I had Alex Marquez on my team as my gold rider all season long. From week 1, I've had Alex Marquez, and I've threatened to fire him already this year. After the contact with Pedro Acosta, the broken hand, another crash that wiped out Mir, I was thinking he was pulling the Alex too many times for him to be dependable as a gold tier rider. And this was the weekend that I decided to make my move. He doesn't love this track. He did look very, very sluggish in Friday morning practice. And that's where I make most of my decisions as far as my fantasy team goes, is looking at that first practice on Friday and see who comes out of the gate swinging, who looks like they're on their tippy toes like a good little racehorse, and who seems a little bit like they're struggling. And Alex Marquez was absolutely struggling all weekend long. So what do? Well, the good news is Alex is worth a lot of money in fantasy this year because he is second in the World Championship, so I had all the budget in the world, and I went out and scored Pecco Bagnaia this weekend before he makes this epic run that he did this weekend. Before he's on pole position. I knew that was going to happen. Before he wins the sprint. I knew that was going to happen. Before he beats Mark in the Grand Prix. I knew that was going to happen. And I will tell you exactly how I knew that was going to happen. But I want to say this first, because I want you to take it in. I told you so. I told you we were going to finally see the Pecco of old. Now, we know they had the Misano test, which he did terribly in the Misano Grand Prix. We saw that he was a little bit better in the test. They said they found some things. They've also said that before this year. Oh, the bigger brake pads, this sort of thing works for Pecco. It's solved. No, it wasn't. But they did go back to some 2024 components on that bike, some shorter forks, different aero, different ride height, kind of making this 2024, 2025 hybrid machine, and it worked to perfection. And the reason I knew it would work to perfection was because first thing on Friday morning, Pecco was lightning out the gate. Pecco doesn't do that unless he is massively comfortable on the bike. Pecco Bagnaia has been a guy who works his way through the weekend, works his way through the session. He doesn't put in a new tire on Friday morning. He works on pace. He works on setup. He works at fine-tuning the little things on the bike. Then he doesn't even work on really one-lap speed at any point in the second practice until it's crunch time and he has to put in that hot lap to get into Q2. We've seen him miss Q2 with that strategy and have to come in through Q1. It hasn't always worked out for him, but that's the way he goes, slow and steady, getting better and better throughout the weekend. We've seen on Saturdays how he's no good in the Grand Prix. No good in the sprint, and then he comes through in the Grand Prix. But this weekend, fast out the gate. We see him do this a lot at places like Assen or places like Mugello or Misano, where he just comes out and Friday practice, he's immediately at the top and he's making it look easy. And then he has the ability, the technical know-how as a rider to get just a little bit more out of that bike, to still work his way through the weekend. But instead of starting at 15th, he's already started at 1st. And that's what he did this weekend. That's why I knew from the very early moments of practice on Friday, the first practice, that Pecco, barring some crashes or some bad luck with yellow flags, he was going to absolutely dominate this weekend. and he did. It is really good to see Pecco back, and I would love to see this Pecco for the rest of the season, proving all the doubters that, hey, I still can absolutely ride this motorcycle, and I can beat Marc Marquez. Maybe not all the time. Maybe I can't beat him to a championship given a full run of season, but if the bike is giving me what I want out of it, I can be competitive, and I think that's all we're really asking. We want to see this fight, Pecco versus Marc. Get Fabio Quartararo a bike that's really worthy of him. Get Pedro Acosta a bike that's really worthy of him. Have Aprilia really bring Bezzecchi and Martin to the fight. And we're going to have a 6-7 way fight for this title next year. That's the MotoGP we are all dying to see. And I hope Pecco can be there next year when it really all kicks off. And the championship, once again, starts at 0. It's all up for grabs. So I am absolutely going to gloat for eternity on how I may have been the only person in the world that saw this weekend coming for Pecco Bagnaia. A huge congrats for him. You couldn't wipe the smile off his face. It's good to see him back, getting in the winner's circle. Congrats. And thank you for giving me some max points back up in a secure, slightly secure 4th place in my fantasy team. I wish my team, VR46, would have done a little better. They were kind of middling, and man, Pedro Acosta running off the track in the Grand Prix surely didn't do me any favors. But that's it for this edition of I Told You So Tuesday, and we're going to be back again next week after Indonesia and see how I did. And I'm not sure if I'm going to change my team all that much, but we shall see.